Alrighty. Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hi.
This is our first live test at the barn. So let us know if you can hear us. We apologize for the random little boxes that are going around. We're still working out some kinks, but we are talking about, oh, good. We're
It's
here.
working.
Okay, it's working. We're kicking off our week of thankfulness since it's already Thanksgiving, which I kind of can't believe. Thursday is Thanksgiving. And we're going to be doing a series of lives throughout the week, sharing things that we're thankful for. We would also love to hear what you're thankful for. So if you have something you want to share, please share it on Amelia's Dressage Club or on your Facebook page. But it's always important to take some time to be grateful and to think about everything that you're thankful for. This is Nicole from my team,
Hi.
if you haven't met her before. And she has a whole schedule of live events for me this week, so I'm going to let her share what that is.
Yes. So today we're talking about horses that have changed our lives and that we're thankful for. On Wednesday evening, we're talking about horsey sayings and lessons learned that we're thankful for. Also, I'm throwing in there instructors that we're thankful for as well. And then Thursday evening, we're talking about our community and Amelia's community because it's pretty incredible. And so we wanted to be thankful for that and do some highlights. Friday morning at 11:45 a.m. Pacific time. This is very exciting. We're doing our first official live from the barn, except we're going to be down in the arena. And then we're doing exercises we're thankful for with demonstrations. So I think that's the one that I'm looking forward to the most this weekend.
That will be exciting.
And then we take a break for the weekend. And then Monday evening, we do, we're thankful for online learning because obviously Amelia does a lot of teaching online. So we're going to go over a few things there that we're thankful for. So it's going to be a great week. Which session are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to all of them. I think the live ride, so we got a Starlink, which is why we're able to do these lives from the barn. And I've wanted for a long time to be able to do live sessions for the barn. We did our first one for our Stride students last week, I guess, which was really fun. But figuring out the technology is always a big hurdle, as you probably know. But then it's one of those things, once you figure it out, it's really cool. It's cool to feel like you're here in the barn with us. So this is actually, our tack room is right behind here, and a bunch of our horses are right over there. Maybe we'll turn the camera around and show you. They're all eating, so they all have their head in right now. But yeah, it's fun to be a part of your journey. It's fun to share your riding and everything with you. So today's topic is horses that we are thankful for. Nicole has the chat pulled up, so if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But I wanted to start by talking about a horse named Scotty. He's a horse that I don't talk about very often, but Scotty is the first horse that I started under saddle. So he was like the first horse that I broke, that I was the first one to ride him. And we got Scotty from Nebraska. I think we paid maybe like how much did my father's here? How much did we buy Scotty for? $500. The best $500 we ever spent.
With inflation, it would have been $800 today.
Yeah, at least. But Scotty taught me a lot. And I remember the first time I put a saddle on him. So he was like very unhandled. He was just out in a big pasture in Nebraska, and no one ever really touched him. So he was not like overly coddled. And the cowboy I was working with, Larry, he's like, okay, get out there and do your groundwork. And you have to saddle him within, he gave me like a time limit, like an hour. So I got the saddle on him and he freaked out and he like bucked so hard. And I thought to myself, I'm never going to be able to ride this horse. Like, are you crazy? But, you know, through all the groundwork that Larry showed me and taught him how to bend and yield and move his hindquarters, I was able to ride him and I did not get bucked off. So I was very thankful for that. And then when I went to college, I left Scotty for my mom to start riding. So that was really fun because he was the first horse that was like her own. And that is what really got my mom also into riding. And by then, of course, he'd been under saddle for several years and he was very broke and tame. And so he was a very safe horse for her to be able to ride. But it was fun to go through that experience of taking him from being like wild to then getting him trained enough to where my mom could start riding him, because she started riding later on in life. She was always really supportive of me and my brother, which I'm very grateful for, as was my father. But it was fun to be able to then hand him off to her, and then she got to ride him. So that's the story of Scotty. Now it's your turn.
That's really rewarding. Like, that's a great story. My story isn't nearly as good as that one. My story is also about a colt. He was a little bit older. He was probably about 5 at the time, and he was cut late, which basically means he was a stallion prospect, but he failed being a stallion. But because he was gelded at like 4 or 5, he was still very, very stallion-like. And when I started working with him, he had scared all of the girls in the barn. He couldn't be let out of the barn into the pasture. Like, he was a different kind of wild, because he was pent up and he was being punished a lot just for expressing like being a stud colt. And so when I got him, he was broke to ride. They had started him under saddle because he was a stallion prospect, but he had started rearing on them. So he had scared the girls, and so they didn't want to ride him, and they didn't want to lead him out to the paddock and all that sort of stuff. And I got the ride on him because he was very talented, being a stallion prospect. And basically, when I started riding him, and and he was rearing, and so I had to go back to the groundwork and get him bending and getting understanding my leg and not being fearful of my leg and not panicking when it went on. And I spent the first 6 or 8 months just long and low and quiet and rhythm and balance and transitions and just keeping the energy really, really low. And it made him so much more rideable. I did so many circles. I can't tell you how many circles I did. And I remember about 8 months into riding him, and he was finally at this place where he was rideable, and we could take him out into the pasture safely, and the other girls could do it. And I remember one of the girls coming in who had been bucked off of him and scared. She came in and she was kind of all snooty, and she was a little bit like, oh, well, you haven't done anything more. He can't half pass. He can't do his flying change. And I remember the owner turning and looking at her and going, that horse is more relaxed now and more rideable than he ever was before. And that was exactly what the horse needed at the moment. And what it showed me was that just because we have these timelines for our horses, a 6-year-old should be doing changes and should be doing half pass and doing all those things, but being able to take your time and go back to the basics, because that's wasn't what he needed at that point in his life. He needed to be safe again. He needed to be rideable again, and he needed to be quiet. And so I learned a lot from him. I got very fit riding that horse, circle after circle after circle after circle, and my timing had improved. And I'm really proud of myself for where I got him. And then we did end up doing changes and half passes, but later.
That's a good story. It's always fun when you're able to ride a horse that other people can't ride,
or
and
don't want to.
yeah, exactly. And I always feel like that's like the most gratifying, if you can overcome that and develop that trust with a horse. I think that's really special. And I think with all horses, you have to earn it. You have to earn their trust, and you have to earn their respect. And then once you have that, and once you have, like you said, the foundation, then it, like, the other stuff isn't so hard. The movements aren't so hard. So, but it is important. It's always about the basics. So one of the other stories I wanted to share is also about a horse that rears.
We might all know this story.
It's funny how all of our horse stories have to do with horses that were difficult, and then we overcame a challenge. But that's like a life lesson, right? It's like everything good in life is hard, and you have to overcome challenges and obstacles, and the journey is what makes it fun. And this is a different rearing story.
Different rearing story. Okay.
So when I was working for Mindy Bauer, who's Buck Brenneman's sister-in-law, I got all the young horses, all the difficult horses, and we got this paint mare. And when, people always send you a horse and they don't really tell you the full story. So she'd been ridden a few times, and I got on her in the round pen, and because we always would ride them in the round pen. And I think I just had a halter on her, and all of a sudden we were just like trotting, and she just like stood on her hind legs and like reared straight up. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. So, what was really cool about that horse, though, she'd been ridden in a twisted wire snaffle. I came to find out later they didn't do any of the groundwork. So they didn't teach her how to like yield or give to pressure. They just forced it on her. And so that was just her default. She would just literally like go around and there's just out of nowhere, just stand on her hind legs. But within a couple of weeks, I got it out of her so fast and she never reared again. And it was really cool to be able to overcome that with her and to see that it wasn't that she was bad or naughty. It was that she honestly didn't understand and no one explained it to her. And I think that that was the biggest gift from working for Mindy, was dealing with all these difficult horses, all these problem horses that no one else could ride, and developing skills to communicate with them to gain their trust. And that served me now, where I don't do so many young horses or difficult horses. But I do know that I have the skills to be able to work with any horse, and that's really a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and to help them, because a horse isn't necessarily a good horse or a bad horse or a naughty horse or a not naughty horse, but all horses go through times. They go to a show and then all of a sudden they become more nervous and scared, and having the skills to
Yeah.
ride them and help them through that. And it sounds like, I know that you've had those, or as we had it a couple weeks ago with the fire here, having to, all the groundwork and teach. You've done that with all of your horses that have come into your
Yeah.
program. And that's something we're all very thankful for when we were loading up those horses. And
Yes.
very, very thankful for their groundwork. This is a story, I have one, and this isn't groundwork and this isn't a riding horse story. This is a broodmare story that I'm really thankful for. So when I was about 17, this is probably too much responsibility that was put on my head, but I lived and worked on a breeding farm, and they bred these beautiful warm blood horses. And they showed and did the young horse circuit and everything like that. And they were supposed to go to a horse show late June or something like that. And one of the mares happened to be due like a week out. And they checked in with the vet, and they're like, the vet's going to be, oh, don't worry, I'll be around, this and that. And they're like, listen, if we don't go to this show, then we don't get points and we might not get year-end awards. So it's very important for them to go to year-end awards. And just the way it happened, I was being left alone, but left back because I went to the shows earlier in the spring, which was fine. I'd done 1 or 2 breeding seasons already. Like, I was fairly confident. I hadn't done one by myself yet, but I had definitely like done the start of them and things like that. And the vet was supposed to be like in town, so it wasn't such a big deal. Although it was a small town, so there's only the one vet. And the first day that they were gone, the stable hand that was supposed to be there, like coming out during the day, quit. And so I was left alone to take care of like a 40 head like farm, plus the broodmares, plus the babies. And first off, that's exhausting and way too much responsibility for a 17-year-old. But the mare did end up foaling one of the nights. And she ended up, and this is where breeding gets a little scary, she ended up prolapsing her uterus, which
is very bad.
Very bad. It essentially means the baby came out, the baby was fine, and then she had retained her placenta. And so it was hanging for a couple hours. The vet ended up being out of town, came back at midnight, gave her the shot, prolapsed her uterus. And it was the whole night was spent caring for this mare, caring for this foal. And I just remember thinking how thankful I was that the broodmare was well handled. Yeah. Because she was able to let us halt her when she was in this terrible state. She was letting us do all these things to her hind end to try and help her, to save her. And then when we finally were able to do that, we had to take her away from her baby. She's screaming for her baby, and we had to give her like fluids. And it was this horrible, horrible experience. But it really gave me a sense of understanding of control and patience and quiet and perseverance in a different sort of way, and understanding that these are creatures that trust us and that we owe them a responsibility. I'm going to cry because we put them in these situations. We choose to breed them. We choose to take them to horse shows. We choose to ride them. And that was a moment in my life that really shaped everything that I do with my horses, because it was so impactful for this one mare and this one foal. And that foal ended up being a phenomenal young horse, phenomenal. And now she's a broodmare herself. And it was a very influential time for me. And so that was an experience I'm thankful for. I'm thankful we got out the other side of
Yes.
it. This is one of the reasons why you don't like breeding. You're like, well, you shouldn't do that. And I'm like, nothing's worse than a prolapse uterus. If I can deal with that, we're fine.
All right. Well, those are some good stories. So we're actually still at the barn tonight because we're going to do something very fun. We're going to try to film with lights on the horse.
We're
So
doing-
stay tuned for hopefully it works out.
Yeah.
It's going to be a big experiment. We have cordless lights and bells. So
Anything else you're thankful for? Any other poems?
well, we have to save some things up, but mostly we want to know what you're thankful for. So comment down below, let us know what you're thankful for. We also have a little promo going, Amelia's winter riding program. And we've put together a bunch of exercises to help you stay motivated and encouraged during the dark winter, because look how dark our camera is getting. Like all you see
in the 20 minutes since we set up
all
the
you
camera.
can see is like our teeth and our eyes.
And my skin radiating.
Yes. So if you're feeling discouraged because it's dark this winter, then definitely check that out. And we'll see you. When are we doing our next one? Wednesday?
Wednesday at, oh, let me pull it up 1
Yes.
sec. Sorry.
So mark, I think it's at
Wednesday,
6 p.m.
6 p.m. And we're in the office and we're with Herman, and it's horsey sayings and lessons learned and instructors we're thankful for.
Okay, that will be entertaining.
It will be very fun because we know
Okay.
Herman's got some good ones.
All right. So we'll see you on Wednesday, and we hope you have a good evening.